Hello, hello. Let me know if you have sound and how the feed is working. Is it pixelated? Is it clear? Can you hear me loud and clear? And then give me a minute to see it because it'll take a minute for it to pop up. The beginning of lives are so weird. They are always super, super awkward because, like, I can't see anything. So it's like, am I here by myself? And if I'm not here by myself, then it's like, are people just lurking and like not helping me? Someone give me a shout if you can hear me and see me okay. So I know before I start going. I don't want to start going and then the sound is crap. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, hey. Hey, guys. Awesome. 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 Okay, good, good, good. You can hear and see me. Okay, so first, I would like to apologize for the absence. Actually, I don't want to apologize for the absence, but I do feel like, I can tell you where I was, right? So a week ago, really what it was that I was feeling dense. It was like I was just like having one of those days, not really like a bad day, just like a dense day. I try to stay away from saying like, oh, I'm having a bad day or I'm in a bad mood because I recognize that it's just like part of the spectrum that we experience in like as a human. And sometimes we're not always flying high or we're not like within those sort of like higher frequencies. Sometimes we wake up and we feel kind of dense. And so last week I was having one of those like moments. I was just feeling dense, didn't really have a reason for it, just a little dense. I was just playing on the other side of the spectrum. And so when I feel like that, I am always super cautious about like whether or not I'm sharing information or messages. And I tend to lean on not wanting to share because I don't want to say something and then say it densely, right? But not necessarily have the awareness at that moment that that's what I'm doing. One second. Duchess, honey, can you not bite your nails? You make them sharp. Okay. Can you go sit down somewhere? Duchess, can you go sit down? Okay. All right. Good girl. Okay. Um, this dog, I'll tell you, she drives me crazy. But yeah, I just don't like sharing information when I'm feeling dense because I don't necessarily feel comfortable with what frequency the information may leave my mouth in. But I do know that I don't want to share dense things. And so because of that, I just like made a decision that like, not right now. This is probably not the best time. Wasn't feeling bad, just dense. And that's what that was. And then yesterday was Memorial Day. And if the banks ain't working, I'm not working. And that's just a little there. Adventure Girl Sean says, hey, girl, hey. Hey. Hey, how you guys doing? I have done some shopping. And I feel like I want to show you first because I feel like you guys could use like some of this stuff. Okay. So the first thing I got is an earthing mat, okay? So there is like a grounding company. I think it may actually just be called grounding. And then there's like an earthing company, right? And the idea behind the mat, they also make sheets, is that they ground you. And so you plug them in, and before you plug them into the outlet, you check whether or not the outlet is actually grounded. And so with this particular company, they give you like a thing that you can check your outlets with that lets you know whether or not it's a grounded outlet because you don't want to use an outlet that's like not grounded. You plug it in, and then you make sure you put some bare skin on it, right? So I have two of them. I got it for free with my points, but the two, if I didn't have points, my Amex points was like $86 or something like that. And you just put your feet on it. And the idea is like you're standing outside in the dirt. And I do think it works. I definitely feel a difference. I keep one here in my office. And so I just put my feet on it to stay grounded throughout the day when I'm working. But then I also have another that I keep in the bedroom on my side of the bed. And before I go to bed, I like lay on top of it. And I just like have my legs touching it, Sometimes I've fallen asleep with it, and it keeps me grounded. When I'm not sleeping, what I do is like I hang this up, right? Like over the back of something like a chair or something. And then on the grounding side, I'll then like take my night clothes, like my nightgown or something, and then I will like hang it on top of this in order to like ground the clothes that I actually sleep in. Or sometimes when I'm not sleeping in the bed, I'll take the mat and then I'll turn it over and then I'll leave it in the bed like throughout the day to make sure that the bed stays grounded, because you have one side that is doing the grounding, like the conducting side, right? And then you have one side that's just like the bottom. So I will just flip it over. And then I have noticed a huge difference, and I noticed it immediately. And I think for people who like meditate, or just like maybe you're just more energetically in tune where you can feel like the subtle shifts in the energetic changes, I think it's something that you would notice right away. And I sleep really well and like really deeply now. And my dreams, I've always had very vivid dreams, but my dreams have changed. Now I go on adventures, which is quite interesting. Every night since I've been using this, I have always been on an adventure, and I have woken up rested. And it also does like really cool things like help with circulation and stuff like that. Listen, I didn't go to school for science, but there's a book that comes with it that explains the science and stuff of it. But if you are interested in it, then like I'd recommend it. And you would just go to Amazon, type in earthing, like EARTHING. Like it's an earthing mat. And it grounds you. It's really nice. So if you're into that, go check it out. And there's like, I think that's the official brand on Amazon. There's another brand I think called Grounding or something like that, but the official brand on Amazon is Earthing. You'll see a lot of knockoffs. I would recommend that you just get that one if you're going to do that, especially if you're going to be playing around with energies and stuff like that. Hey, Chantel. Okay, so listen, messages. Yes! Oh my gosh. Thank you. This is confirmation because I was thinking about getting one of these. I love it. And like I had ads that were just chasing me around. And then I was like, I'm just going to buy it. And then it popped up. I had points on my Amex. I didn't even know I had points. And so I just got it for free. But like, yeah, it's good stuff. I really like it. So tonight's messages. Tonight's messages were actually really interesting. And it felt like Spirit went, like, y'all don't need any more messages. It's really what it felt like. And it felt like they then cut me off, right? And and it wasn't like that there are no messages. It's just that it was a feeling of we need you to listen to what you were already told, implement the things that you were already told, process the things that you were already told, follow up on all the synchronicities that you have been getting, follow up on all those brilliant ideas and hopes and dreams and desires. We need you to actually like take a step before we're willing to give you any more information. And then I was like preparing the cards for tonight, and I don't really like to like read prior. I may pull a card or two just to see what I'm working with, but like reading it, no, I don't like to do that because I don't know what's going to come out. But the one thing that did come out that I was like, because it flipped, right? It just kind of popped out of the deck that I caught, and then I put it on top because I was like, we got to talk about this. Was, am I willing? And I thought, how interesting. And then what started coming up after that was, okay, so there's a lot going on. So one, there's a feeling of people feeling really impatient, right? This feeling of like, I feel like I've been doing all the work. I feel like I've been implementing. I feel like I've been taking all the advice. I feel like I've been maintaining my energy and watching my frequency. And I feel like, I've been just doing so good and watching my negative patterns and my behaviors. And I've been checking in with my like limiting beliefs, and I've been doing everything, but like nothing is working. And I feel like nothing is moving. And like, so there's this feeling of impatience, and there's like kind of this feeling of like, you know what? Fuck it. Like there's like people are on the edge of wanting to give up on something. And I never thought that I would actually like say this, but I feel really sort of resolute in it now, where I'm just going to say, okay, give up. Like give up. Because If you give up, you now get out of the way. And spirit needs you to like move out of the way. And sometimes it can feel counterintuitive because you're like, well, I'm trying to do all these positive things. And it's the trying, it's the act of trying itself that then creates the resistance. It's the act of, once you are in trying mode, then you have lost, right? You want to just sort of be in a being mode. And then as you're doing these things, like in terms of like trying to keep your energy elevated, trying to make sure you're working with higher frequencies, like it should be sort of more so like of a state of being, like you are regularly in a higher frequency, which is why I said I didn't come on last week because I felt dense. That wasn't the frequency I really kind of wanted to work with. And so instead of trying to put myself in like a higher frequency in order to come on, I just allowed myself to be what I was in that moment, which is dense. And then just kind of like was like, all right, whatever, we'll see what happens next week. We'll try it again, right? I wasn't trying to pep myself up. I was just allowing myself to sort of be. And so there's a feeling, there's a lot of people who are trying to be higher, who are trying to think higher, pursue higher. And it's the act of the try that is resisting. Because what happens is you get so focused on the trying to be high, like in terms of elevation and frequency, that you don't necessarily allow room to just be you. It's not even allowing room to like be denser or allowing yourself room to be sad or hurt or upset or disappointed. It's more about allowing yourself to just be you, in that moment, recognizing that you are human. And because you're a human, you're going to have a human experience, and the human experience is all parts of that spectrum. It's not going to just be you flying high all the time. Now, could it be? Yeah, of course. And is there a day where you could reach that if that is something that you actively wanted to pursue? Absolutely. But do you have to try to sit in that state all the time if that's not what's naturally occurring within or around you? No. And so it's more so about being, because the thing with like trying to call things into you, trying to manifest, right? You have to like, we have this feeling of like needing to hold the desire, like let me just want it, let me want it hard, let me make sure that the universe can hear it. And so we hold, and we hold really tight. But like, think about the times where you've like ever like wanted something really badly, or you wanted something to happen like super super badly, and then like it just wasn't happening for you, and then like one day you're like, you know what, fuck it. And then like you just kind of threw your hands up at it and then went about your life. And then one day you turn around and that thing that you wanted suddenly happens. It's because you let it go. And in that moment, you had to have a fuck it moment, but it didn't matter because you let it go. And the reason why sometimes just being like, screw it, is actually really effective is because by saying screw it, it doesn't mean that you actually released the desire. What you did was you gave up on maybe potentially trying to like manifest it. Maybe you felt like it wasn't going to happen for you. Maybe you felt like it wasn't meant to be or whatever, but it didn't actually release the desire itself. And so even though you went screw it, you're actually still holding the frequency of the thing itself without realizing that you never actually put it down. Because just because you give up on something doesn't mean that the desire went away. So you're still holding it in your frequency. It's still sitting in your aura and it's still very present because you still want the thing. Just you couldn't figure out how to get the thing. And so you just went, all right, screw it, let it go. And so what I'm picking up on is that like, I just need some of you guys to adapt some fuck it moments right now, right? Whether it's like a fuck it, fuck them, fuck you, like whatever, start adapting some fuck it's. I just like need you to like care a little less, okay? Because you caring less doesn't mean that you discard the desire. You caring less takes you out of the mode of trying. And when you're trying, you're pushing, right? When you're trying to make it happen, you're in a state of resistance. You fall out of a state of allowing, because when you're trying, typically what happens is that you have like one method. You have, okay, I'm going to try this one method, and then maybe it doesn't work. And then typically what happens is that people will take that one method that they have and then they'll tweak it, but they're still doing the same method, right? And then maybe they tweak step 2 and then it doesn't work. So then they tweak step 3 and then it doesn't work, but they're still in that same method. like not realizing that the way it actually comes to you is like method 16 or something like that. And it's a method that, one, you would have never noticed, you would have never thought of by yourself, or it could be a method that doesn't actually concern you. It could just be like spirit. It could just be like dominoes that need to fall into place that have nothing to do with you. It could be a situation where like you want an opportunity, but the person that gives you that opportunity doesn't yet have the job to then extend you an offer, right? It may require that five people removed, somebody gets fired from the job, they get hired from another job, and the new job that they're currently at, one person retires, and then they have to wait a year, and then they get promoted. But then now that they're promoted in that new job, they're now sitting with the approval authority, right? And then they go looking for, then they like place an ad, right, to hire, and then you see the ad, and then you respond to it, and then you interview, and then they hire you. Like there could be like so many other dominoes that have nothing to do with you that just need to fall into place in order for you to get that thing that you want. And so it could be method 16, but method 16 may not require your help. And so if you're over here trying and all you're doing is constantly updating this first method, you're now like in the way, right? Like you're just a nuisance to the universe, right? You're like a fly and you just need to kind of go sit down. And so this energy that I'm feeling of people feeling like I'm getting like some sort of feelings of frustration, some feelings of exasperation. I'm also getting a lot of like confusion, like feelings of like, oh, I thought this would work, but like it's just like not, it's just not doing what I thought it would do. Like all of that's like okay. And like don't fight that, like because that's your current state of being. And like sometimes the most important thing is to simply be you and then just be like, you know what? I'm gonna like give this shit over. I'm just gonna let dominoes fall. And I don't know where the dominoes are, right? And I don't need to see them fall with my own eyes. I just know that dominoes are falling. And when that final domino hits my domino, I know that I will be notified and that it'll be time to go. But until then, instead of trying to force something and then get frustrating with the process, with the universe, getting frustrated with God, getting frustrated with yourself, feeling like it's not happening, it's not working, it's not meant to be, I can't have this thing, just understand that like it's like it just didn't hit your domino yet. And like just go sit down. Like some of you, I just need you to just care a little less. Just go sit down. Let the shit go, okay? And if that means you say fuck it, then say fuck it, because saying fuck it does not release the desire, but it does release your hold over the way you feel like it's supposed to meet you at a specific time it's actually supposed to meet you at. It does release that, right? So like release that and let it go. And then while you're in the act of releasing, letting things go, in order for things to flow, one thing that did come through today was that it's time. And what the it's time is referencing it's time for you to be you specifically. So forget the stuff, forget the thing, forget the situation or the circumstance or the outcome that you're looking for, because that is working itself out. And right now, you're not needed in order for it to work itself out. Because if you were needed, A, it would be working, or B, you wouldn't be confused. It would be rocking and rolling. And right now, it's not really doing that, which means that you're not needed. You're just in the way. And while all of that is sort of sorting itself out, because life is very intelligent and it doesn't always need your help, you're going to be over here being yourself, right? Because outside of all of this frequency work, it's so important for you to be in a state of being, right? You don't have to force higher frequencies if that is your choice. Like a few lives ago, I keep saying, make a choice, make a choice, make a different choice. You can choose what frequencies you like to sit at. I choose what frequencies I like to sit at, but I also understand that I'm human. And then being human just means that I am. And that sometimes I need to be. And that even though I'm choosing this doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not experiencing the other side of the spectrum, but even with experiencing it, I'm only experiencing it. It doesn't mean that I am the other side of the spectrum. Just because I have an off day doesn't mean that I am the side of the spectrum. I'm just experiencing it because that's the job of a human, is to experience all facets of what it means to be a human. But I understand that it is my choice to be here. And because of that, I actually usually am over here. It's not too often that I'm super dense, but when I am, I allow space to be, right? Because if you try to fight that, then what's happening is that you're going to sit in that area, an area that you don't want to be in, for a longer period of time because you're resisting it. You're in a space where you're like, oh my God, I'm over here. Oh shit. Maybe I should meditate. Maybe if I center myself, maybe if I think really hard to not be here, I'll stop being here. But then with all of that thinking about you being here, then you stay there longer because you're putting so much emphasis and so much focus on that area, as opposed to going, oh, that's interesting. All right, well, it is what it is today. And then fucking it, like say fuck it, and then like letting it go. And by letting it go, you will find that you end up back on the other side of the spectrum a lot faster because you didn't fight it. You didn't try to be something that you weren't, right? And so this is all aspects of you. It's time for you to step into being who you are, because that thing that you really want, that situation that you really want, that opportunity that you really want, the circumstances that you really want, also needs you to be the new version of yourself that you're becoming. Because if you accept those things into your life, if that opportunity comes to you right now, if that new love comes to you right now, you're not going to be able to hold it energetically because you are not allowing yourself to evolve into the person that you're supposed to evolve in. You want those things because you were evolving. And as you evolve and as you ascend, new things become possible to you. And that's why you want these things, but you have to allow yourself to step into the new version of you so that when it comes to you, you can hold it. So many people what's the word? Try really hard not to change. And then they get that thing that they wanted that came to them because they evolved, and then they can't hold it. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't change, because what does that mean? What are the implications of whether or not what happens to me if I change? What will people think of me if I change? Oh, my family member or my loved one said to me, hey, please don't change. Or I've heard the saying, when you get a lot of money, money changes people, right? And I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person that changes because of whatever, right? It's because you're evolving that you want it in the first place. And it's not reasonable to not expect yourself to change because you are an eternal being. The only thing that we know, the only thing that is constant is change. And that's including you. It's time for you to evolve. And what's happening is that you have been sitting in your little, what do butterflies have? A chrysalis? It's a chrysalis. The cocoons are for the moths, right? One of those things. You've been sitting in one of those things as your little pool of DNA goo. You were supposed to hatch out of that thing months ago, but you've been sitting inside of it because you feel like it's safe, that no one can get to you there, that you can't rock the boat there, that you understand who you are there. Sometimes when it's time to evolve and it's time to sort of change, to molt, to shed the skin, what can be daunting for people is not knowing who that new version of themselves is. You now have to meet somebody new. And when you don't necessarily know the new version of that self, how could you possibly explain it to somebody who knows you already? How could you possibly defend yourself to somebody who already knows you already? And then what happens is that we'll create these boxes for ourselves, and we use words, thoughts, ideas that we heard from someone else or somewhere else to create the prison that we actually live in, right? How many of you have had a family member say to you, and now you're grown, you're grown, but you've had a family member say to you, and it could be a sibling, oh, remember when you were a kid and you used to do that thing, right? Or maybe a parent says that or something. I remember when you were just my little baby, right? And what's happening is that, or maybe you're saying that to other people. But what's happening is that those people, you have stopped aging to those people. It doesn't matter how old you get to those people, they have sort of marked a moment of time, a memory of you, and then they have used that memory to create a definition of what they think you actually are. On this breakle, of what they think that you actually are. And then they will use that definition to then interact with you for the duration of your life. And so you can have people around you where you're like, why are they talking to me that way? Why are they responding to me that way? Why are they acting like that towards me that way? Or you may say, like, I'm not a child. Maybe some of you get into it with your family members during holidays, and every once in a while you're like, yo, don't talk to me like that. I'm not a kid. It's because they have that sort of snapshot moment of you when you were a child, and they have used that snapshot moment of you to create a definition of who it is that you are. And that's why every time you now do something new as an adult, sometimes they act surprised, sometimes they act shocked, or like there's like this moment of disbelief of like, you did that, or you know that, you knew that, and you're like, well, why wouldn't I? It's because they have that snapshot moment of when you were a child. And so this idea that you have aged, you have grown, you have matured, you have evolved is something that is very foreign to them. And so the truth of the matter is that, is triggering for some people. It can be hurtful for some people, but I also think by acknowledging it, it can be something that is probably really liberating. Is that if you feel like you are someone that finds that you preserve pieces of yourself or pieces of your personality to maybe appease people that are close to you, your loved ones, your family, your friends, or maybe it's not even about like appeasing them. Maybe it's about like maintaining peace, right? Or maybe you feel like it's just easier this way. It'd be too difficult to try to explain to them now. And so I would just rather just keep the narrative because I don't really want the headache, right? Like maybe you kind of go through that moment. Those people, it doesn't matter like how often you do that or like how hard you're trying to not rock the boat with like who you are. The truth of the matter is those people don't actually know who you are. And there's probably nobody that's around you, even the people that you love the most, that actually know who you are because you change so quickly. Like we are changing an infinite amount of times a day. The moment you make a new choice for something is the moment you have changed. The moment you discover something new that you like is the moment you have now changed. The moment you discover something new that you don't like is the moment you have now changed. The moment you lay in bed at night and you think, you know what, tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow I'm going to do it different. Tomorrow I'm going to rewrite my story because I don't like how it's going. And like you make that choice, the moment you make that choice to do it again, to rewrite that story, to be different, is the moment you've changed. And whoever is in the bed laying next to you at that moment no longer knows the current you because the current you has just evolved. You're different. You're not who you were 5 minutes ago. You're not who you were yesterday. A lot of you are not who you were 3 months ago, 6 months ago, last year. You are evolving. And so if you feel like you are sort of preventing yourself from flying in the way that you want to fly because of other people's expectations, what other people may think, right? Or even what you may think about yourself. Oh, can I handle this? Can I do this? Well, I mean, you do it an infinite amount of times a day. You change an infinite amount of times a day. On a physical level, think about the days like for some of my gym girlies, right? Think about the days you have where like you go to the gym versus the days that you don't go to the gym. Think about the day you wake up and you're feeling like, oh, I'm kind of lazy. I don't really feel like going right now. I don't really think I'm going to go today. And then something happens like midday where you get like a burst of energy and you're like, actually, I'm going to go to the gym today. And then you go and then like lift a bunch of weights. You walk out of that gym stronger than you were when you walked in. You are not the same. You have changed. And maybe you feel inspired by that and you go, I should do this more often. And so then you come the next day. And then now suddenly you have fun at the gym. And now you go all the time. And now you're a regular, right? You're different. You have changed. And so you're changing all of the time. And so a lot of you are fighting something that's already such a natural process, something that you're already doing. You are holding yourself back from a natural form of evolution that you do when you're sleeping. And so you're putting in all of this energy to restrict yourself when yourself is doing it anyway. And so, what it's time for you to do is to give yourself the permission to evolve naturally because you're doing it anyway. You're giving yourself permission to simply be you because you're doing it anyway. And when you're fighting the process, you're fighting you. And when you're fighting you, then now you're out of alignment because the things that you now want that have come to you because you've changed, because you've evolved, require you to be that changed person for you to hold that new thing. Because if you try to grab that new thing as the old you, you won't actually have the ability to hold on to it. And so if you're like, but I don't want to deal with people that say, but you've changed, they're going to say it anyway because you're not a child, right? But I don't want to deal with people that say you've changed. Well, they're going to do it anyway. Maybe you have an ex that says that. Well, I'm not who I was when we dated or when we were married. I'm not who I was before we had children. I'm not who I was, even with simple things like before I had that job, right? Maybe you had a job. They treated you like shit. You left that job. It's probably real hard to treat you like shit now. You're not who you were when you had that job. You are now different in the new current job that you're currently sitting in. Maybe you go on vacation. And so now you feel expansive. You feel inspired. You feel excited because you got to see and experience new things. And so now your wanderlust, your thirst for more knowledge has grown. You've changed. Everything you come across will make you change. That's just the way it is. And so it's time for you to give yourself permission in order to do that. And then that brings me back to the card that popped out earlier today when I was shuffling that said, am I willing? And so I think that this is where a lot of the blocks, if you feel like you have some in this area, could actually be worked out. Like, why are you preventing yourself from allowing the evolution to occur naturally? Is it because you're afraid of shining? Is it because you are afraid of being better? You're afraid of being great? Is it because you have to acknowledge that maybe you're not fond of who you were in order to become who you will be? Is it because you feel like you're not in a place to acknowledge things that you have done in order to move into a space to do the things that you will do? Is that what is preventing you from allowing yourself to just freely evolve? Is it because you feel like people will go against you? People won't understand you? Is it because you feel like you're going to be misunderstood? Because all of those things are required for evolution. Last time I went live, I said your past is your resume. It's because of all of those events that triggered the change in the first place. And if those events didn't happen, then you wouldn't have changed. It's because all of those things that have happened that now you have become who you are today. And if it is a situation where you're like, I don't want to be misunderstood. I already feel like maybe I'm having a little bit of a hard time being heard or seen or appreciated or loved now. And if I change into who I feel like I'm supposed to be, people around me won't like it because maybe you on an intuitive level know that by you evolving, that makes you bigger than the other person, right? And then maybe you don't want to face backlash with other people feeling like, oh, this person thinks they're better than me. And so because of that, now you try to survive with an illusion that you go, well, I'm not better than you. No. But by doing that, what is really happening is that you're taking all of your energy and you're making it smaller. And so because you're trying to not offend people, not intimidate people, not give off this idea that maybe you're better than somebody else, you are actually inadvertently shrinking. And so you're supposed to be evolving. And as you evolve and you transcend, it's only natural that your energy field and your aura get bigger and brighter and it widens. But you're over here trying to stuff all of that into a glass jar and then wondering why you are unfulfilled, why you feel uncomfortable, why you feel like you're in environments that are not really meant for you, but you don't really know what to do about it because the environment that you're in is the glass jar that you have somehow figured out how to stuff yourself into. Like how, as kids, you would get a jar and then you would catch fireflies. How beautiful were those bugs that lit up? These beautiful bugs that had the ability to carry their own light as opposed to a summertime mosquito. They carried their own light and we would take them and catch them and put them in a jar, right? But we knew that it was too beautiful to stay there, which is why the good ones of us released it so it could fly. And so here you are, this gorgeous lightning bug with this ability to carry your own light and your own torch without needing it to be lit from other people. And you are stuffing yourself in this jar and you're sitting there waiting for somebody else to come open the lid in order for you to fly, for somebody else to come and be like, it's okay for you to shine bright and just to be beautiful and awesome and everything that it is that you're doing. You're waiting for somebody else to like let you do that, when you're supposed to be the one that just lets yourself do that. Change is inevitable and every animal evolves. That's what they do. Dogs shed their coat, what, like 2 times a year? Snakes always shedding. Lizards always shedding. Like everything sheds. Trees shed. Everything. Why? In order to grow, in order to evolve. And the very thing that's so natural to nature, the very thing that makes you an animal, the very thing that makes you of the earth, that makes you human, is the very thing you don't allow yourself to do. And you use various different excuses as to why you shouldn't. I'm not ready. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. Or maybe you don't deal with all of those things that are internal. Maybe you're on the other side. Maybe you're on the external side where you're looking at, oh, how am I going to be perceived? Am I going to piss people off? Are people going to like me? I really don't want to rock the boat. I'm already the black sheep in my family. I'm already the black sheep in my family. And if I do this thing, I know I can feel that I'm supposed to be bigger than what I am, but I'm already the black sheep. We already don't really get along. If I allow myself to blossom, then what does that mean for the relationship that I have with them? Whereas what I have to say to that is, well, what relationship? If you are concerned about how they're going to receive you, if there's already a situation where there's a dynamic that exists where they don't appreciate you fully for who you are, that it has created a dynamic where you are concerned to be you and be yourself truly, then what relationship are you really trying to preserve? Because to me, it sounds like there is none. If it's a friendship, some of you have best friends that you have spent a lifetime trying really hard not to offend, not to accidentally intimidate, not to inspire envy or jealousy from this person because maybe they get a little vindictive. And you say that you're doing it because you love the person and you want to preserve the relationship. My question to you is that if you can't be yourself in your most authentic way, in your most authentic version with this person, then what relationship really do you have? And what is it that you're trying to preserve? Because it sounds like nothing exists anyway. And so you are keeping yourself small for illusions that you have created in your mind. You're trying to maintain people or circumstances or situations that don't actually serve you. You have found ways to convince yourself that they do without being able to provide yourself with supporting evidence of how it does. And then you have created a dynamic where you are staying small based off of illusions that you have created for yourself. And you can say, okay, well, maybe Mr. Grant, I just didn't want to hurt my own feelings. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't ready to accept the truth because the truth hurts. I get that. But you're hurting now. So what's the difference? I personally would rather be hurting while I'm on my way to being phenomenal and being great than be like hurting and small and tiny and miserable. Like if I had to pick a lane, I personally just feel like it's an easy way to choose, you know? I think that people are really good at convincing you, and by people I literally mean it could be family, it could be a friend, it could be a boss, right? A stranger that just says bullshit when you're standing in a Walmart checkout line, okay? People are really good at convincing you to stay as your old self. People are really good at like creating this narrative that like you grow up from being a child, you become an adult, and as an adult, that identity, that personality that you have when you turn 18, something about that solidifies, right? People are really good at convincing others of this narrative. People are really good at convincing that every 10 years, every decade, you're supposed to evolve a little bit for added maturity, but you're not supposed to go too far, right? And so we have this thing where it's like, okay, you turn 30, you should supposed to have a degree of added maturity, but not of added maturity, but you don't have so much that you went too far. And then at 40, okay, fine, we'll allow you to evolve a little bit more so you have a new degree of added maturity, but don't take it too far. And then, okay, and in the next 10 years, turn 50, you get another degree of maturity, but don't take it too far. Society has a really good way of like giving you like 10-year increments where you can do it a little bit, but you can't do too much, right? That for some reason you develop a personality and then that personality solidifies, and then that's the personality that you hold, and then you die with it. And it doesn't give you a whole lot of room in order to grow, right? But the reason for that is, remember, I say society, like the universe, is simply trying to maintain order. The universe has balancing forces, not necessarily good or bad forces, just balancing forces. It loves to maintain a state of order. And society, although it struggles, tries really hard to maintain a sense of order. And if you are over here freely and publicly allowing yourself to evolve daily, because that's what we do, it is not even like a daily thing, it is a second by second, minute by minute thing. If you came into this live with one idea and then you walk away from this live going, actually, you know what? She's right. I do need to allow myself to evolve and be okay with that. You have just changed. And not only did you just change, you have also just altered the course of your entire life. Your entire life has just been altered because you've made that one choice, that one decision, due to coming to one new realization, due to having one moment of clarity, a moment of awareness. In that split second, suddenly you're now different. Think about the amount of times that can actually occur to you in a day. You are changing so fast, so frequently. And if everybody was doing this, if everybody knew that they had an ability to do this, then people would change deliberately. The thing is, people don't realize that their evolution and that change, because it's happening anyway, because you can't stop it. You can't like rewrite the laws of the universe, right? Like you're not gonna be like, oh, this is where I stop. Like that's not really how it works. But a lot of people are not aware of the fact that they're changing anyway. And so they change, but maybe they change for the worst, right? Or maybe they perceive the act as life happening to them. And so they're changing because of their circumstances. But when you become aware of the fact that like you're changing and you're doing so an infinite amount of times a day, then suddenly you now have the power to choose when and how you evolve. Suddenly it becomes a process that you now have a hand in. Suddenly you can turn it into a game. You can do something with it. You can participate in this thing that we call life. And you can allow yourself to use that particular mechanism to steer and direct which way you would actually like to go in life. And people don't know that, right? But could you imagine the loss of control that society would have if everybody knew and understood that was what was happening? That like people could just change whenever they felt like it. And that by changing whenever they felt like it, because all that's required is a new moment of realization or another choice. That's all that's required to change. Like, society wouldn't be able to keep tabs on anybody. What makes society works is that people are predictable, that you can predict patterns of behavior, that you can predict emotion, that you can predict whether or not they're going to go left or right. That's what these big companies use for these ads that you see every time you scroll. They're predicting your behavior. But if suddenly everybody knew that they had the ability to change immediately, and that they can do so even with discovering something new that they like or something new that they don't like, how difficult would it be for something as simple as a company to track you with ads? Like, society would literally fall apart because you are now unpredictable. And so when you give yourself permission to evolve, people may have some comments, right? Because suddenly you've become a little unpredictable. They don't necessarily have an ability to predict your next move because you no longer have the same pattern of behavior or potentially the same pattern of thought, right? And so it's possible people may like this, but you also have to leave room for like the possibility that people may love it, that people may say, you know what, change actually looks good on you, that by you changing, you call in a new group of people, friends, lovers, work environments, and new coworkers that vibrate at the same level as you. And suddenly you're sitting with people who have the same interests that you have now recently discovered that you had, right? The same passions that you've now recently discovered that you have. Maybe they are just so kind and compassionate as people because you allowed yourself to evolve and be kind and compassionate. A lot of you have big, beautiful hearts, but because of your perception of life, you don't allow yourself to evolve into that kind, compassionate person that you are truly meant to be. You're hard, you have armor. And so you're sitting here mean mugging people when that's not even what you're supposed to be. And you can feel it because it's not in alignment. You're over here shouting at people, yelling at people, cussing people out, leaving shitty comments on social media. Okay. And really, it's because you're sensitive. And so when people say things, it hits you in a different kind of way. But you're sensitive because you're actually really kind and you're really compassionate, but you're afraid that if you allow yourself to evolve fully into that, that maybe something could hurt you or maybe someone could hurt you, right? And so without thinking that, okay, but what if I evolved into that and then I attract opportunities to me that only are meant for people that are kind and compassionate. I attract people to me who are also kind and compassionate. Because people who are kind and compassionate, who are allow themselves to evolve fully into what that means, they don't tend to hang around people that are not that because it's just not in alignment and it doesn't feel good to them because they're kind and compassionate. They have a tendency to find those people, but you're so afraid that something is going to have a gotcha moment with you that you're not allowing yourself to evolve. And so that experience that comes with that, you're not even allowing yourself to experience, right? You are thinking about all of the potential consequences that could come with something, as opposed to thinking about all of the benefits and the rewards that can come with something. And again, remember, this is society's training. If everybody was bouncing around being optimistic about good things to come, that's not going to inspire the level of fear that keeps people in check. Because when people are fearless, or at least when people are brave, not necessarily fearless, I don't necessarily think that that's always possible, right? We're still animals at the end of the day. We have instinct. And our instinct registers as fear. It tells us when something is wrong, right? When we need to get out of something, get out, like fight or flight or whatever, right? But there is an element of being brave or being courageous, right? In spite of being afraid of something. And if everybody in society was just actively being brave, right, you couldn't scare somebody into submission. So remember that a lot of these things is just society's way of trying to find and maintain balance and order. And because we are a part of that society, we fall victim, unfortunately, and we are susceptible to the mechanisms of society. But then once you realize that those mechanisms are at play, You can choose whether or not it's something that works for you. And if you are seeing that you want something bigger, then it's going to require you to break out of that, because there is a ceiling, and the ceiling is created by society. And if the ceiling is too low for you, and that ceiling can be anything, it can be how people interact with each other, how people treat each other. I know, like personally, I'm sick of looking at social media and seeing the comment section on any random video, and it's just like adults bullying people for absolutely no reason. I can't stand that. I don't know like where we are as a society. I hate that, right? Like, but there are other people that hate that too. And you have an ability to choose which group you actually want to roll with, right? And guess what? The group that you actually would like to roll with is the group that would love that evolved you, that would love that kind you, that would love that compassionate you, because there's room. There is room for who you are evolving into, and there's room for who you are supposed to be and the person that you will be. Because if there was no room for it, you wouldn't exist. And the universe, God, whoever it is that you want to identify, there's one thing that they don't get wrong, and that's one of them. You wouldn't exist. If there was no purpose for it, if it was no purpose for that evolved version of you, you wouldn't be here. If there was no reason for that evolved version of you, you wouldn't be here. If there was no room for that new evolved version of you, you would not be here. There's room for it, but it's up to you to allow yourself to be you. It's time for you to allow yourself to be you. Because if you are not allowing yourself to authentically be you and just show up as you, not show up as this or that, or this tweaked version, or that tweaked version, or this smaller version, or that smaller version. No, just be you. And guess what? The people that are supposed to be around you will be around you and they will love that evolved you. And the people that are not supposed to be around you when you are your evolved self, they may go, they may leave, but chances are they weren't really supposed to be there anyway. So why are you trying hard to hold them there and to keep them there when they're not supposed to be there? And a lot of you know that they're not supposed to be there, but you are afraid of what's going to happen in their absence instead of realizing that like you're not the person that's going to suffer in their absence. That if they were smart, they're going to be the ones to suffer in your absence. Because you were the one that they overlooked. But if you allow yourself to be the evolved version of you, one day they'll notice that. One day they'll see that. One day they'll realize, like, oh, this probably wasn't the great idea. All of this, well, if I do that, what if I rock the boat? What if I burn a bridge? Burn the damn bridge. If you're worried about burning a bridge, it wasn't a fucking bridge in the first place. It was an illusion that you created to make it feel like that relationship was something bigger than what it actually was. Something more important than it actually was. Be you. And for some of you that are like, oh my God, but that's just big. Like, how do I do that? Like, that's kind of hard, Mr. Crane. It's a little bit hard to be me. You know, all that I am, all that I feel like I'm supposed to be, the potential that I know that I have. It's a little bit difficult, right? So then segment it out, break it up. Right? Because here's the thing with being you and your authentic self, it comes with responsibility. Because when you allow yourself to evolve, right? Sometimes for some people, that may put you in leadership positions that maybe you felt like you weren't ready to take. For some people who are ready to evolve, that may throw you into a really loving relationship that you feel like you're not ready to handle because you haven't worked through your previous trauma, right? So allowing yourself to be you fully will come with some responsibilities, right? And then sometimes that's what gives people highs. And then, you know, the dry heaves, because then they feel like they're not actually ready to do it. But remember, if there wasn't a spot for you, if it wasn't meant to happen, then you wouldn't exist. If you weren't meant to have that beautiful love, you wouldn't exist. If you wasn't supposed to assume that leadership responsibility that's making you freak out, you wouldn't exist. All of these things are there. All of these things that you can feel are meant for you or on the horizon for you because you exist, because it's supposed to happen, because it's you. You sit here and you go, oh, is it for me? Is that opportunity for me? Could I possibly have that? Is that love for me? Realizing that you're thinking that all of these things are outside you and not realizing that what it is you. It's you. That opportunity is you. That love is you. That thing you want is you. It's all a reflection of you, because life does not happen to you. It happens through you. It is you. It is a product of your creation. And so it makes no sense to sit there and go, well, I don't know if that could ever happen to me. It's not about whether or not it's happening to you. It is you. And the sooner you allow yourself to be authentically you, the sooner you will see these things come to you, because it's you. What's happening is that you're pushing away all of these things in a state of resistance because you're rejecting who you are and rejecting who you're supposed to evolve into, rejecting who you are meant to be. And then you're wondering why, oh, I don't understand why these things aren't coming, because you're rejecting you. If it's a situation where you're like, okay, but like, I really want to do this thing, but then I have to do some public speaking. Okay, but it's you. It's you. Everyone you're talking to versions of yourself. It's you. It's all you. That thing you're scared of is you. That thing you're running away from is you. That beautiful love that you think you can't have is you. That thing where, oh, no one will ever love me. Why? It's you. Why don't you love yourself? Oh, I don't deserve that thing. Why? It's you. Why don't you think that you deserve you? It's you. You're chasing all these things outside of yourself. It's you. So the spirit was like, nah, I'm not giving them shit today. We're not sharing any more messages until they understand and they integrate the messages that they received. I don't care how many candles you light. If you don't understand that you're running from yourself, lighting a candle isn't going to make you stop running. It's you. It's important that you evolve. It's important that you grant room and space for yourself to change and not carry any form of judgment about it. Whether it's guilt or resentment, or even if it's like excitement or happiness, just understand that that is nature. All nature evolves. And you are denying your nature, which is you. You need to grant space in order to do that, in order to evolve. And it may be a little bit scary. You may come out, you may be like, oh yeah, this is a great pep talk. And then wake up tomorrow and go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be me, right? Then you go to work and someone says something ignorant and then you get small again, right? And so it may be an exercise. It may be an exercise where like, okay, you allow yourself to blossom for 5 minutes. Maybe you get scared, you get small again. Okay, cool, that's fine, not a problem. But remembering the fact that you change an infinite amount of times a day, you don't have to then go, oh, I'll try again next week. No, you try again, literally go take a shit, go take a nap. I don't care what you do, go eat, okay? And then you try again after that moment. And you do so by making a choice. And the choice that you're making in that moment is, actually, I'm going to be big again. It's okay, I got small. I got a little scared, I got a little spooked. But I'm going to be big again in this moment. And then you allow yourself to be big again. And then that's the choice. And then boom, and that choice that you've just made, you've changed again. And you've evolved again, which is what you're supposed to be. And all these big things that you see for yourself and that you see for your future requires you to be big, because the things that you see are versions and aspects of you. And if you play small, but you have this big goal, big dream, big ambition, then how do you think you're going to hold it? Because you'll get it, but it'll crush you because you're too small to hold it. If it's big, be big. Allow yourself to be big. Be you. Be authentically you. And okay, maybe people have comments to say because they don't know who they are, but that's not really your problem. Not your problem. not your concern. And to be quite honest with you, shouldn't be any of your business. I don't really know why you're so nosy that you're paying attention to it anyway. But hey, here it is what it is. I digress. Your business is to focus on being you, because that would bring you happiness. Part of the frustration and the anger that people have is due to the resistance that they're having to themselves. Like, frustration is usually, whenever you feel frustrated, that is usually a really good sign or indicator that there is resistance happening somewhere, that you are running up against a wall somewhere. And whenever you are experiencing frustrations related to you, like you're frustrated with yourself, you're resisting yourself, right? If you are angry, that means you have been frustrated, usually for a period of time, or a sort of varying degree, maybe a higher degree level, right? So there's more resistance there. And so that is a sign. That is a sign that you are denying yourself. Because when you allow yourself to authentically be you, you're in alignment. The only thing that can come out of that is fulfillment and satisfaction, happiness. Oh, God forbid we be happy, right? But you're not going to be happy if you're playing small, because you can't hold it. It's a very big frequency. It's full, it's wide, and you're not going to be able to experience it in the way that it should be experienced if you're so busy trying to stuff it inside a jar. Being you requires, excuse me, that you are big. It requires that you're huge, actually. It requires that you're like massive. That's the only way. And the interesting thing about being big is that all humans are big. Everyone has a really big aura. The issue is that people lose sight of who they are. They lose touch of who they are. They lose touch of their purpose, their reasoning. They lose touch of options and answers, because they're losing touch with themselves, right? The truth is, the inner truth, your inner self becomes more clear the more in touch you are with yourself. And so most people are not in touch with themselves. And so because of that, yeah, they have really small energies, really small auras. And the auras that they do carry are chaotic and erratic and really uncomfortable. And it's theirs. They can't escape it. And so now they're uncomfortable. And then that makes them miserable. And then they're over there making you miserable too, right? And so, but when you are being yourself, when you are in full alignment, you are actually naturally very big. Everybody is very naturally very big when you are in alignment. You become magnetized, like magnetizing. Things are drawn to you, things like you, things that are you like you, right? Because you're not rejecting it. When you are playing small, you're rejecting yourself. You're rejecting everything else that's around you, which is also aspects of yourself. Things have a harder time coming to you and being attracted to you because you're in a state of rejection and restriction. Where is it going to go? And it's uncomfortable. The energetic field is uncomfortable. But when you're you and you're like sitting in you and sitting in your you space, you are naturally very big. You're naturally very open. You're naturally very receiving. And there are people that are going to love that. And there may potentially be people that don't like it. Maybe they're intimidated by it. Maybe they don't understand it because they can't predict a pattern of behavior from it, right? But that's not your business. Your business is you, and allowing yourself to fully enjoy that big version of what you are. And understanding that, okay, maybe it's going to take some practice and it's going to take you some time in order to like really allow yourself to like sit in it, right? Maybe you'll sit in it for 5 minutes, you'll fall out of it. Okay, that's fine. But then get back up and then sit in it again. And if you fall off of it, all right, that's fine. Get back up and sit in it again. I don't care how often you fall off of it, as long as you get back up. I don't like bitches who sit, okay? Don't lay down. I don't go for that. I don't like people that lay down. If you get knocked down, that's one thing, but I'm going to need you to brush yourself and get back up and try again, because it's on the other side of that. Eventually, you'll do it enough times where it's not like you're trying it out. It becomes a habit. And once you have a new habit, congratulations, there's your new pattern of behavior. Your new pattern of behavior is just simply being yourself. Your new pattern of behavior is just simply being. And that's all you're supposed to do here. And with simply being, everything will start to come to you, because everything you want is you. You are the creator. It's you. What you want to come to you are the pieces of yourself that you've lost along the way. You. All of those desires you have are pieces and aspects of you that you've scattered along the way that you're trying to figure out how to recall back to you. That's why when you feel like you don't have it, something feels a little out of balance because it's you. You're recalling pieces of you. Well, guess what? When you are open and receptive to receiving yourself, guess who likes to show up? Yourself. Hmm? What are you guys saying? Ah, okay, hold on. Is it Vanny Row? Vanny Row Zero? I heard something similar in a video weeks ago, I think. You die when you go to sleep and come back to life a new person the next morning. I wish I remembered how they said it. It was better worded. I've actually heard like sayings like this too. For me, the way I've always kind of like related to it is when I die, or not when I die, Jesus Christ. When I sleep, I have like minimum 5 to 7 lifetimes. My dreams have always been active. I've always been like a super active, vivid dreamer. And I have many dreams, and I'm always different people and I'm always different characters. And my dreams are so full that it's always usually an entire story that plays out. It's not often where I like wake up in the middle of a story. I like, even if I wake up prior to the ending, I always wake up understanding the gist of what was supposed to occur and like what the ending was going to be. And I sometimes will wake up feeling tired because I feel like I've had so many lifetimes in that like window of actually sleeping. And like people say that like sleeping is the most natural thing that you can actually do. People say that when you sleep, you actually leave the body and then you actually go back to where you originally from, or you go back to source, and that it's not the spirit that's sleeping, that it's the body that's resting. I've heard that. But that the spirit is sort of bouncing around doing like whatever it does. And I know my spirit bounces. I don't actually think I'm always in the body. I gotta be honest, I don't always think I'm in here. I really don't. Like I be off. Like off. I had a therapist that told me at the time that when you change, there will be those that accept you change and adapt, and those that will be defensive about it. Yeah, there's nothing that you can actually do about it. I mean, it's all a reflection of those people and where they are, where they think they should be, what they were taught, their trauma, what they've battled with, their comfort levels with self. There's nothing worse than someone that like is struggling to be comfortable with themselves and then like watching you do it. Like how dare you do it? Like you ever have like someone say like things like what's a good example? Like when someone goes, I wish I was as confident as you. Some people interpret that as like a backhanded compliment. I don't feel like it is for me, but some people say that. Right? Like people really feel like sometimes you're over there like really doing it, and they are looking at you like, I wish I could be that person. I wish I could do what they're doing. I wish I could see the world the way they see the world. There are really people that are like that. And some people will take it and they will use it as a tool. They'll say, well, if they can do it, then this is evidence that I can do it too. Holy, like, let me figure that out. Or let me ask them, like, how can I do this too? Because this looks like a state that I actually want to experience. But then you have some people that are like, that'll shit over the entire process. But like, whatever, you can't do anything about it. Chantel says, how can you deal with people who haven't grown? And I have changed. I keep working with bully managers. Well, you're not supposed to deal with people who haven't grown. When you have realized that you have outgrown people, it's time to move on. I'm going to say it again. When you realize you have outgrown somebody, It is now time for you to move on. If you are in an environment full of people that you feel like you have outgrown, it is time for you to move on. You have learned all the lessons that you were supposed to learn in that environment when you were previously in alignment with that environment. You are no longer in alignment with that environment. It's time for you to move on. And when you are in a job situation and you have bully managers, that is the universe's real funny way of letting you know it's time to move on because you're getting, well, pushed out. And when I say pushed out, it's not necessarily always that like someone's trying to fire you. It's really about getting you to see that the environment is not compatible, and it's giving you an option or an opportunity to figure out how you want to leave it, right? And so people leave it in different kind of ways. You can leave it physically, like you can go somewhere else, or you can recognize a job for what it is, which is a resource gathering activity. You show up, you gather your resources, and you leave, right? And you detach from any other meaning that you may have potentially have given it. So some people will have a job and they may go, well, this is my career. This is my life's work. I've done all this work to get to this place, to get this job, maybe get this title, maybe get the salary or this pay, right? It's about detaching from the meaning of what a job really is, which is a resource gathering activity. Because for the majority of people, even if you were in a job where you're like, I've worked so hard to get to this place, if I offered you $10 million right now, would you keep it? If the answer is no, then it's really not that important. It's not that important to you. It's just a resource gathering activity. So don't assign it so much meaning, right? And by not assigning the job itself so much meaning, then it's easy not to assign those managers so much meaning. But also know that you do have power in your circumstances. And when you're in the moment, it feels like it's not there. When you're in the moment, it feels limited. When you're in the moment, it feels like choices, maybe there's just none that are there, right? Maybe it's a feeling of, but I've been here for X amount of time, or I'm comfortable being in this environment, or I know everybody, or I have friends here, right? Or this environment gives me enough resources that I need in order to take care of myself, to take care of my family, right? To keep a roof over my head. People have very real and honest concerns and worries, which are very valid when people start thinking about transitioning from out of those kind of environments. But transitioning out of those kind of environments is always an option. It's always a choice, right? And life is very funny in the way that it does the same thing every time. It'll give you a window of opportunity to make the choice yourself. For some people, that window of opportunity can be years. But eventually, you can overstay your welcome and life will push you out. If you feel like you're surrounded by bullies, it's an environment that's no longer compatible. There is no such thing as being in a compatible environment, but then also having bullies. Like if it wasn't for these two people, the rest would be fine. No, the bullies are a product of the environment. People are attracted to certain environments for a reason because there's some form of energetic alignment that's there. So like bullies, they in the environment, that's like one thing, right? It's out of alignment and you now have a choice to make. So that evolved self that you now are, what choice is that new evolved self going to make? Ooh, La 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 says leadership is definitely scary. I I don't know if you're still here, but I want to I feel intrigued by that. What do you feel like leadership is scary? And actually, if there's any other people that like resonate with that, like leadership is scary, I would actually like to hear from you too. What about leadership is scary? And the reason why I'm asking is because that's common. That's a common theme about feeling leadership is scary or feeling scared to step into it, to take on a leading role. What is it about it specifically that is scary? Being in charge of others like a team you have and letting them down. Okay, all right. What else? Panda D2 says, yes, I'm afraid I'm going to do or say something wrong and then look like a fool or ruin the team. Sabrina says, I feel that leadership is scary. All that responsibility falls on you if you fail. Bayana says, I feel like people expect you to be perfect. So when you're human, you get damned for having flaws. Kia says, I feel like it's scary because if I fail, everyone else will fail as well. Wow, really? Brandon says, sometimes it feels like there's a fine line between being righteous or bossy and being afraid to become too bossy from being told you're too mean growing up. Oh, that's deep. Fanika says, you're vulnerable. Society makes you feel like you have to show up as a perfect leader. Oh, Lalala says, leadership is scary to me because you are the captain of the ship. There is no one to ask questions to. You are the question answerer. Being out front with no cover. 2, people relying on you. 3, crabs in a barrel brings more unwanted attention. Crystal Smith says it's the failure. Definitely leading the team astray with a bad decision. Avenger Girl Sean says, I'm out for a promotion and I don't want to change my fun, bubbly attitude. I'm a free spirit. I don't care too much about being too serious, but I will have to be more serious in this position. Gotcha. Christina says, I get nervous about finding that others do not have the same passion and drive, and that feels lonely. Panda D2 looks like the theme is perfectionism. Yes, it does look like that's the theme. Bayana says, I like to call it the Messiah complex. Ekraz? I agree with the perfect leader comment. Since my actions affect others, I feel like I can't misstep as opposed to just working for myself or on my own. What if? I'm trying to think. So in my professional life, right? In my like real world 3D professional life, I always sit on leadership teams. Because I went to school as often as I did and like sort of have like the qualifications that I have, when I actually got out of college, when I finished my graduate studies, my first role out of college was a director level position. And I've sat in leadership positions ever since. And I have a point to this, just bear with me. When I got my first leadership position, my first director role, I first remember feeling like I wanted to shit myself. I went through the entire interview process. They must have did 3 recruitment rounds for that job. They couldn't find anyone they liked. And then I came along and they closed it immediately and they were like, you're great. Like, yes. And I remember getting the call and then wanting to shit myself. And then would tell people that were close to me, people that I love, family members, friends, hey, like I got this job doing this one thing. And prior to that, I was a student, right? So this is my first like job outside of college. And I was like shitting myself, but there was a part of me that was excited because I was like, oh shit, I need a job. I need some money, right? But then I started talking to other people and telling them about this job that I got. And I was expecting like congratulations and like good jobs. And I didn't get that. What I got from other people was people saying, you sure you can do that job? You sure you can do it? You don't think it'll be too hard? And I remember at that time going, why are people saying that to me? And then what I eventually came to realize was it wasn't that people thought I couldn't do it. It was that people thought they couldn't do it. And like, I think the biggest thing that I took away from that is that you guys can see by looking in this chat that every single one of you have the same fear. So, has it ever occurred to you that it's highly likely that the teams that you guys work on feel the same way? And that when there is someone that steps up and they step into that leadership position, that typically what happens is that there is this thing that people have that isn't really verbalized, but I've noticed it because of the positions that I have, where they kind of go, "Oh, thank God it's not me." But because they're happy it's not you, something happens that's really interesting where people then look to you for guidance. And the best thing that you can do is because, like everyone said, what if I don't have the answer? What if I fail? There is an understanding that people have that their leader may do that. And because there's an understanding that their leader may do that, there's a level of grace that people have a tendency to extend to the leader that they have. Now, this is where things can go left or right. It is now up to it's the responsibility of the leader, not the responsibility, that's not the right word. It is up to the leader to then have grace for themselves. Because if you go into it going, I'm the leader, I'm gonna have all the answers, right? I'm gonna get everything right the first time. You don't allow space for other people to give you grace when you need it. As a leader, if you go into it with your team saying, listen, I'm human. I may not have the answer for everything, but what I can promise is that I'm going to help us figure it out. What I can promise is that as a team, I'm going to help us get to the answer. What I can promise is that, like, when you need help finding the answer, I'm going to be there for you and we're going to figure that out together. I can't promise that I'm going to be right all the time, but what I can promise is that when I figure out the right answer, I'm going to let you know. I can't promise that everything is going to be correct the first time because I'm a human and I'm doing it for the first time. But once I figure out what's right, I'm going to tell you. And with that, I hope that you feel free to then do your work that way too. Being a leader isn't about being right. It's also not about having the answer. Being a leader is about leading and leading the team to find the answer together, leading the team to figure out what is right together. It's about guiding everybody to get to that answer. It's not about having the answer yourself. It's about understanding that everyone on the team is a resource and that if as a leader, you don't have the answer, you can ask your team what the answer is. And if you extend yourself that grace to do that, then the team extends their grace to do it. They'll do it back to you. It's when leaders get up there and they say, well, I know everything, I know best. I do everything, I do it best. It's when they get themselves in trouble. But what people want the most out of people that lead them is for that person to just be human. The people that are just human are the ones that get the most amount of respect. The people who can make mistakes without no, the people that know how to recover from a mistake. It's the recovery that is the most important part. It's not the mistake that's the issue. It's the recovery. And when people see the leader recovering, that is what earns respect. That's when people follow. That's when people want to follow you because they go, oh my God, teach me how to do that too. It's not about not having to make mistakes or like not having to fail. It's about understanding that you will make mistakes and that you will fail and understanding that your team will make mistakes and that there will be times when they fail and then guiding them through that process. And with you guiding them through that process, your team will then guide you. I know for me, my practice, I've always been super like transparent. And honestly too, with the more experience, the more transparent I become. I'm not gonna, because I didn't know this the first go. Like that first job out of college, I didn't know that. I didn't know, right? But I very quickly realized that like, oh, it's not gonna work this way, and I don't have all the answers, and I don't know, right? And so when I like work with people and it's like new people, like we're meeting each other for the first time, I'm always very transparent about that. I always go into like, this is what I can do in terms of like our relationship with each other. This is what I can do for you. This is how I can help you. This is how I can assist, right? Um, this is my area. And then I always say to people the same thing. I always say, I can't promise that I will have the answer, but I can promise that I will damn sure help you get there. But I can't promise I'll have it right away. I may, but I'm not going to promise that I will. But I will promise that when I realize I don't have it, I'm not going to give up on the process. I'm not going to give up on you because I don't have it. We're going to keep going until we figure this out. And it's the resilience that separates people. It is the recovery that separates people. And so if you are like, oh my God, I'm afraid to fail, it's not about the failure, it's the recovery. How are you going to recover? Because that's what people really care about, right? You make a mistake, how do you recover? You recover by being like, oops. Sometimes it's about calling it out. Oops, I made this mistake, but this is what I've learned, and this is what I'm now going to do about it so we can make sure it doesn't happen again. It's the recovery. And people will grant space. Ask for grace too. Ask for grace. Guys, I'm human. I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure it out. Just give me some grace. Hold on one moment. People will give it. People think that they won't have the grace, but they never asked for it. And you have to ask for grace because it's not a normal part of conversation that we have. We're not in the practice of asking for it, of giving it and receiving it. But when you ask for it, then like people go, oh yeah, that's an option. Sometimes it's about putting the option on the table. Yeah, you have to be super transparent about what it is that you're doing. Be transparent about why you're making the decisions that you're making. Be transparent about how you're making those decisions too. And so sometimes what happens is that, team members reasonably will get upset because sometimes decisions will get made and they don't know how they got made. And I think what leaders oftentimes overlook is the fact that your decision has an ability to impact people. And it's natural for the people that feel like they're impacted to feel frustrated with not understanding how you made that choice. It's only reasonable for people to be like, can you walk me through like your pathway? And so being transparent about how you got there. If it's a situation where you're like, oh, because I'm in this role, I got to like pull things back or I got to say no to something, tell people why you're saying no. If it's a situation where maybe it's sensitive information and you can't divulge all of the details, tell people that. Tell people it's sensitive. You can't tell them everything, and then tell them why you can't tell them everything. You'd be amazed at how reasonable people actually are when they feel like you respect them enough to communicate with them. Part of the issue is that people feel disrespected. Like, you're talking to me or you're treating me like a child. You don't think that I wouldn't understand if you didn't just tell me that? Like, be forthcoming in what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. If it's like a process, if you have a way of making it transparent so people can see and understand the steps, do so. I do find that some people fall into leadership positions and they interpret leadership as power, whereas I don't view leadership as power. I view leadership as authority, because authority is the only thing that can be given or assigned. But people choose whether or not they want to follow. I think people assume leadership positions and they think that because they're in a leadership position, that means everyone has to follow them, and that's not the case. But people will follow you naturally if they respect what you're doing, and people grow to respect what you're doing if they understand why you're doing what you're doing. And eventually what will happen is people will stop asking you why you're doing what you're doing because they know you're processing. They know, okay, well, this person, she's explained it to me a few times. This is the process. So I know that that's why she did blah, 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 blah. And then eventually, people stop caring. But like, yeah, just be transparent, just communicate, just be open and just be honest and know that people are going to have questions, and it's natural and it's reasonable, because when you are the one that has authority over others, people will reasonably want to understand what you are doing and why you're doing it, because what you're doing impacts them. And another thing about leadership is that, like, you have impact. Some people are afraid to have impact. And people assume that their impact has to be negative because maybe a mistake was made or they failed at something. Not realizing that your recovery is the difference between someone that is in a more junior position will choose whether or not they want to pursue a higher position at a later part in their career. Maybe you are the reason because they saw how you behave. They saw your character. They saw your fortitude. They saw your resistance, or not your resistance, your resilience. They admired it. And then now you made something possible for them. It's not about being empowered. It's just about guiding. And just like parents make mistakes when they're guiding you, if your mother made mistakes raising you, you can't expect that you're going to be better than your mother. Come on now. Like in a leadership position, come on. You got to give yourself some grace. Panda DT says, I needed to hear that. I always feel nervous when trying to guide my team, but with my colleagues, I'm not afraid to look like I'm unsure. Looks like it's okay to show my team my uncertainty. Yeah, because the thing about the uncertainty is that they know, right? They know when you don't know what you're doing. Like, and then if you try to hide it, they're probably talking shit about you too, right? And so to prevent all of that, the best thing you can do is just be in front all the time. Stand in front. That's part of being leading, by being in the front. And sometimes it's about being in the front of you, right? Being in front of what you've got going on, what you know, what you don't know. Yep. Just, and then rolling with it. Crystal Smith says trial and error as a unit. Yep. Perfectionism is so in line with white supremacy culture, and we have to shake that. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, yeah, it is. And it's really sad, and it's really unfortunate. I was just thinking how far I wanted to go into that, but then I was like, this is a spiritual channel. Like, let's leave it there. But this is also too, I think when it comes to leadership, like this can also go like further, like, yeah, okay. I think we were using like sort of jobs as like as like an example, but this extends everywhere. This extends leadership in your family and your family unit. Maybe it is your responsibility to assume the leadership position, and maybe that's difficult, right? So what's coming to mind right now is that, like, look, I'm a millennial. Millennials are going through a generation handoff, right? We're starting to realize that suddenly those barbecues, those cookouts, we're supposed to throw them, right? Wait a minute. Like, hold on. I'm the uncle now. Like, I'm the one that's supposed to be at the grill, like cooking this stuff. Like, there is a generation handoff. And right now, like in a lot of family structures, there's a bit of a power vacuum because the people that used to do it maybe have passed away, or they're kind of too old to do it right now. And millennials are starting to realize that, like, hey, Gen X, maybe they're turning into grandparents. I don't know. It depends on how old you are. But like, millennials, they go up to 40. And like, that's like, you got kids, man. Some of y'all may have a grandbaby on the way. And you're starting to realize, like, oh, the torch is passing. And now there's room for a new leader in the family. Maybe there's room for a new matriarch in the family, right? And there's a feeling of like, and it comes through in simple things like, oh, I can't make that potato salad the way my my mom used to make it or the way my grandma used to make it, or like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or I can't do this or I can't do that. It's not about doing it necessarily right. It's about just taking a shot at it and recognizing that other people are going to give you grace because you tried to do it, because you took the role, because you assumed the role, because they recognize that there's a responsibility and they didn't want it. And they're just glad that somebody took it. It can come across in like romantic relationships. Some romantic relationship dynamics have one that's more of a leader, right? In the relationship, sometimes relationships will have a dynamic where like one is more of a maybe they're older, or smarter. Maybe it's not even an age thing, and maybe you find that like you're teaching your significant other things. Maybe you're teaching them life skills or about certain things, or you're teaching them how to do things on their own or whatever. Like it can come across like in things like that, and you're like, oh, but I don't want to steer them in the wrong direction. You got kids. That's like the ultimate leadership responsibility, guiding little ones until their adulthood, right? And so leadership comes out in so many ways. Even if you work for yourself, what if you like the work that you do, it gets really big, you become really blessed, really fortunate, you need a little bit of help, you need to get a contractor in there. They're going to look for you, they're going to look to you for direction. You still got to lead them. And so leadership comes across literally wherever you go. I have volunteered in soup kitchens. Soup kitchens still have people. Who's the shift leader? Who's the leader? Like someone's got to tell you how much food to pack, right? Leadership is literally in almost every situation that involves other people. Little kids are learning to lead. Line leader. They're learning how to guide a group of people from place A to place B. They're learning how to get people from one place to another. That's leadership. It exists everywhere. And as long as you understand that you're starting at A and that you'll end at B, and like the rest of it is just learning how to not take yourself too seriously on the way to B, accepting room that maybe you'll take a wrong turn, but like having enough of a sense of humor that your team that's following you can have it too. Right? Understanding that maybe somebody else on the team reads a map a little bit better than you do. And letting them read the map, not feeling like you got to read it yourself because you're the leader. You're just guiding the team. But even if you are a team member on a team, maybe you're not the one that's holding the leader role, that you stepping up and saying, hey, actually, I do know how to read maps really well. Can I help? That moment is you leading, regardless of whatever title you're holding. It happens everywhere. It's always coming up. Leadership at my job up to the highest level has run amok. Spirit tried to warn me to leave years ago. Now I'm trying to figure out how to leave the April. Man, I've been through this. I have been through I've been through this where like the top just lost their fucking marbles, and you're like, I don't even know what to do with you, right? Or you see it go to their head, or maybe they just have a different opinion about what it should do. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen leaders be like, I'm everything. I've also seen leaders be like, leadership is service, which I personally don't agree with. I don't think leadership is service. Although I can't understand how some people would think leadership is service. I don't think it's that, just because I don't think that the team needs you to play the martyr. That's not what they need of you. They need you to be a bit more stronger than playing the victim. Yeah, I'm gonna serve. That's not really, they need someone that's like not, in my opinion, in that mindset, but like whatever. Right. This extends in forms, work, home, spiritual. Yeah. I'm in the lead of a lot of things and it can definitely be overwhelming. Yeah. It's always overwhelming. I think it can definitely be overwhelming when it's not in check, but I think it's even more overwhelming when you're not allowing yourself to be in alignment with what you are, right? And what state that you are in that moment. My nose is running. Oh, how cute on the internet. But like sometimes you just have to be what you are in that moment, which is where the transparency comes in. If you are someone that is always transparent with the people that you're leading, whether or not that's an actual team or it's family or whatever, then if you're transparent with them when you are in a moment where you're feeling overwhelmed, like you can say, hey, I could really use your assistance. One thing I like to say, because it's honest with people when I'm stuck, is I could really use your help. I could really use your help right now because it's honest. That's me being super honest with you. I would like your help. And there's something that happens where people, when it's said like that in a way that's genuine and authentic, where people say, how can I help? And then it fosters a relationship between that person where they come to you, hey, I could really use your help. And you say to them, how can I help? And you create a relationship of reciprocity. Just how can I help? So anyway, if you guys have anything else left to say, drop it in the chat. I'm going to pull the final card and we're going to get this wrapped up. I've been liking these chakra wisdom oracle cards recently. These ones, I think they have really good lessons in them. You are welcome. Okay, let's see what we got. Discovery. Let's see what she says. Where is it? Okay, hold on. Okay. So the pink guy is, the name is Pink from Pinkton. They're Pink from Pinkton. And it starts with, I am more than I think I am. So the legend, the lesson is, life is easy for young Pink. He takes his gifts for granted until one day he loses Petunia, the love of his life, forcing him on an inner journey. He works hard on himself, hoping for another chance that doesn't come. In desperation, he consults Sky God and learns that Petunia is incapable of receiving love. Pink recognizes that Petunia's role in his life has been to expand his capacity to love. Are you trying to recapture a past that no longer fits? If you are presently upset or struggling with a difficult situation, you may be seeking to keep something that is far less than what you deserve. Are you happy in this situation? How is it benefiting you? The healing of predetermined agreements must be addressed. Awareness is healing. And then it says, leave the past behind, a readiness for new adventure, a willingness to venture into uncharted territory, a new level of self-care. Interesting. They do hit. I know, I love them. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to wrap there. It was a good chat. It was a good chat. And, you know, as always, if you like what you see, please subscribe to this channel. And if we don't meet again, I will see you all next lifetime.